Amazon's Jeff Bezos announced a new platform to launch his next business, the one-day delivery of passengers into space. Plus, Twitter's getting a new buy button, and Facebook is working with Germany to crack down on hate speech. It's all coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Tuesday, September 15th, 2015. This episode is brought to you by Gazelle. Would you like to get cash for your old iPhone? Gazelle makes it easy. The shipping is free and the payment is fast. What's your iPhone worth? Find out at gazelle.com. And by ZipRecruiter. Are you hiring? With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post to 100-plus job sites, including social networks, all with a single click. Screen, rate, and hire the right candidates fast. Try ZipRecruiter with a free 4-day trial now at ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. My name is Mike Elgan, and our co-anchor today is After Nine's content czar, Joe Panettieri. Hey, Joe, how you doing today?
Mike, I'm having a great week. How have you been?
I've been great, thanks. And I noticed on the video there that we've got a new URL for you and your company. We're going to talk about that near the end of the show. So hang on to your hats there, folks. We're going to get some news from Joe on his company. But first, let's jump right into the news. Stripe is rolling out a new push to turn social networks into shopping malls by adding buy buttons. And they've already signed up Twitter. Kurt Wagner writes for Recode and co-authored a piece on this news and joins us now. Welcome to the show, Kurt.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Now, how does Stripe's buy button work exactly?
So essentially what Stripe is trying to do is there are retailers and platforms that are out there that have a lot of reach. So in this case, we'll use Twitter as an example because that's an early partner that they announced yesterday. But what you would do is if you're a retailer, you would sign up with Stripe and you would upload your product catalog. And then it'd be very simple for you to promote those products along with a button to purchase those products on all of the other partners that Stripe has in their system. In this case, Twitter being one of the first ones. I think Shop Style is the other one. The other big one that they announced yesterday. So the idea would be that if all retailers and all publishing platforms use Stripe, it'd be very simple for everyone to get their products all over the internet. Of course, that does require everyone to buy into Stripe's model and Stripe's product, of course. But, you know, that's how they see the benefit.
Hey, Kurt, building on that in terms of the model, any clues in terms of how they lined up Twitter here? And would Twitter be able to do this on their own without partnering?
So I'm not exactly sure how Stripe and Twitter necessarily came together, but it makes a lot of sense, right? Because Twitter has offered a buy button in the past, but it really hasn't been that prominent. I mean, I don't know what your experience has been like, but I very rarely see an item on Twitter with a buy button attached to it. And so I think they would love to get more into the commerce game. And yes, they could do these kinds of relationships individually, and I think that they probably will from conversations I had yesterday at the event. I think they will have one-on-one relationships with some big retailers, maybe like an Amazon or a Target or someone like that. But for all of the smaller retailers out there, you know, it's a lot of work to have a one-on-one relationship with all of those folks. So if they can, you know, use Stripe as the platform or the middleman, they essentially get access to all of these smaller retailers that they might not otherwise make the time or effort to connect with. And that would mean a lot more products on Twitter in your timeline for people to buy.
Kurt, Pinterest is definitely not on board. Facebook seems unlikely to embrace this because they didn't invent it. I don't see this going on to Google+. Where else besides Twitter might this offering show up?
Sorry, Mike, you kind of broke out just a little bit. Were you just asking?
Yeah, I'm just saying Pinterest is not going to participate in this Stripe buy button thing, and Facebook probably isn't either. Who else do you think would be a candidate for this for buy buttons, just like Twitter has been?
Well, I think that Facebook, I know you said that they're probably not going to, and I'm kind of in agreement with you, although they have worked with Stripe before on their buy button, so perhaps they would be able to convince them. But I think that Facebook is really where they should be focusing, because not only would that probably include Facebook proper, the news feed, but I would imagine it would include Instagram as well, which is huge. And then, of course, I think the fourth one you got to think about is Snapchat. And not a lot of people think about Snapchat right now because they don't necessarily offer a buy button or any kind of shopping experience, but they do have a Snap Cash feature where I could pay you money, you can pay your friends money. So there are people with debit card information logged into Snapchat's system, and therefore it would be a logical next step for them to offer the ability to actually buy products. So I think they got to go after Facebook and Instagram as a combo. That would be huge for Stripe. And then I think Snapchat is another logical example of where we might see something like this actually crop up.
Hey, Kurt, what about longer term? Are there any clues that there might be some search capabilities here? The reason I ask is buy things, everything just flows through the stream so quickly these days. Could I, as a consumer, actually search some sort of index to see what I could go shop for using their system, either today or maybe longer term on their roadmap?
That's a really good question. I wish I had a better answer for you. As of right now, I have no idea, but that would make a lot of sense, right? Because if retailers are offering up essentially their product catalogs, that's a lot of information that Stripe would have, and it would, I guess, behoove people to go check it out. So as far as I know, I'm not, I guess, aware of whether or not that's like on the product roadmap, but I think that, the ability to go from a product level versus a platform level to try and find stuff to buy would make a lot of sense.
And that's exactly why I believe you're right, that we're likely to see an Amazon get involved, because, of course, the general idea of buying things on social networks through buy buttons is a direct competitor to the habit that everybody has right now of just going to Amazon and buying it. And so they're going to want to get a piece of that. And Amazon has shown a willingness to try all kinds of different platforms to sell their stuff, including coming out with their own hardware division, working with brick and mortar retailers and so on. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. Kurt Wagner's at recode.net and on Twitter at KurtWagner8. He is Kurt Wagner the 8th. Thank you so much, Kurt, for coming on Tech News Today.
Of course. Thanks for having me, guys.
We've got some more news for you coming right up. But first, I want to talk about Gazelle. It's that magical time of year. Yes, it's iPhone season. And that means that the value of your existing iPhone, if you in fact have an iPhone, is about to go down a little bit. And so you're going to want to sell it to Gazelle as soon as possible. Just go to GAZELLE.com and choose the phone that you've got, the exact make and model, the carrier, if it is on a carrier, and indicate its condition. And Gazelle will show you a price. That is literally the price Gazelle will pay you for that phone. It's real value that can be applied to your next phone. And if you're going to get a new iPhone, you're going to get a new Android phone, no matter what you're going to buy, you can also buy it from Gazelle. Gazelle is a great place to sell, a great place to buy. And if you keep buying and selling to and from Gazelle, you will always get the most phone for your money, and you will save the maximum amount of money. It's the way to do it. You can, if you've got an iPhone 5S, if you've got an even older iPhone than that, they will buy it. If you've got a phone that has a damaged screen, they will buy it. If you have a phone that's in perfect condition, they'll not only buy it, but they'll give you really, really top dollar for it. And when you go to buy a phone from Gazelle, you can choose one that's just like new. And all of their phones that they sell you have been run through a 30-point inspection to make sure that they work flawlessly. So Gazelle is the place to buy, the place to sell. Trade in your used phone and electronics for cash. Visit Gazelle.com today. And we thank Gazelle for their support of Tech News Today. Salesforce unveiled its new Internet of Things cloud at Dreamforce in San Francisco today. Dreamforce, of course, is the company's annual conference. Ron Miller is at the event, and he wrote about it for TechCrunch and joins us now. Welcome to the show, Ron.
Thanks, Mike. Always good to be here.
Always glad to have you on. Now, what is the Thunder platform exactly?
Well, the Thunder platform is the base on which this new Internet of Things platform is built. And it basically, every time Salesforce builds something, they have a platform to go with it. Everything is a platform play. They don't only want you to buy the service, they want you to build things on top of it. So this one has a special platform that they built for it that they call Thunder, which follows the recently announced Lightning, which of course goes well together.
Are there any clues in terms of what they're actually doing here with the Internet of Things, though? Because you talk to people out in the market, IoT means different things to different people. And I'm wondering if Salesforce has clearly defined what types of products and services will be linked to this.
Well, they have a number of things that they've talked about. And, course devices feeding information, whether that's your iPhone or, some other thing like your watch or anything that would be considered, a device that provides information. But it's also stuff coming off your social stream, stuff coming from, the web and from, all kinds of information, even weather data. And their thinking is that they want to tie all this information together and, build a clear picture of the customer. Because for Salesforce, of course, it always comes back to the customer. And eventually they believe they can take all this information, build a very clear picture of the customer, and then help really pinpoint certain things that they can give from the Salesforce platform.
Do we know when this will become available and how they're going to price it?
They are not revealing pricing, which is typical of, Salesforce. And they're being a little vague about it, but they're saying the first half of 2016 it will be piloted, and then later in the year it will become generally available.
Hey, Ron, in terms of who this will be available for, can you give us any clues? Is this for end users or software developers? Who would jump on the Thunder platform initially?
Well, my guess is that, they're aiming it at companies who are trying to build some sort of Internet of Things presence. And it's pretty tough to do, right? It's not easy technology to implement. It's very complex. So they're trying to simplify it. And that would probably be aiming at IT and developers and trying to provide a way for, where the line of business users comes in is they have this rules engine. And you can say, if this happens within all this stream of data, I want to trigger some sort of action. So the example that I used in the story was, you have sensors in your car and your brakes or your tires begin to wear out. The sensors feed that data through the cloud to the service center, and then they can trigger some sort of email or some other communication that would let the driver know that, hey, it's time to come in for service.
Now, Salesforce also announced a couple of tools under the Salesforce IQ label. Can you tell us what those are all about?
Sure. That relates back to the, if you'll pardon the expression, the Relate IQ purchase that they made last year for $390 million. So what Relate IQ has given Salesforce, amidst all of its many, many offerings, is kind of a smarter way of approaching CRM. And if you know salespeople, they don't really like entering information into CRM tools. So the idea here is that they can pull information from email, it can pull information from your calendar, and it becomes sort of a proactive engine to drive actions that the salesperson can take. So they don't have to think explicitly about, I have to call this person because, this deal is about to, this deal could be something that is about to close. I should probably pay attention to this. So it's a lot more intelligent, and it's adding, proactivity to the sales process and making it a lot easier for salespeople to do their job.
Kind of like Google Now for salespeople, I would guess. Ron Miller's at facebook.com/reporter.ron and on Twitter at Ron_Miller. Ron, thanks for coming on Tech News Today.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Facebook is adding a new feature to Facebook events. It will add read receipts so the creator of an event knows who saw the invitation. Kerry Flynn is a tech reporter for the International Business Times and joins us to talk about it. Welcome to the show, Kerry.
Thanks, Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you. Now, isn't Facebook asking for trouble here? I mean, wouldn't users prefer to see invitations without that information being shared with the event creator?
Yeah, there was a lot of uproar this morning on Twitter, the best place to air your grievances.
Especially about Facebook.
Exactly. Yeah. It's interesting that Facebook has made a lot of changes to events, some that are well received, some that are not. This is just the latest one. Just a month ago, they're toying with the idea of whether or not you say that you decline to event or that you can't go. So people, they have their pick and choose about whether or not what's the best way to show. This idea of read receipts is huge. We've seen uproar on other networks as well. WhatsApp introduced it back in, I think, last fall. People got angry about that. Facebook itself added it to Messenger. It's this whole idea of transparency about whether or not you see something. You can elect whether or not you have read receipts on your iMessage. Some people like having the choice. Other people are like, why not be transparent?
Hey, Kerry, is there any way to turn off or deactivate this quote-unquote feature?
No, that's really where the big concern is coming, that there is no option to deactivate it right now. Though we can really expect someone to come up with a web-based system that you could employ on your browser in the future. So you could be in a quote-unquote incognito mode, though that couldn't then be translated to mobile. So you'd have to do a lot of workarounds if you really wouldn't want the event coordinator to see that you can't go.
Yeah, I think the option that people really want is oh gosh, I didn't see your invitation mode. That would be really great. So what recourse is there for invitees who don't want to be outed as having seen an invite? I mean, should people just completely avoid this feature on Facebook?
Yeah, you should probably just not be on Facebook. That's really the number one excuse to not having seen a Facebook event would be not to be friends with the person, which is also interesting because Facebook brought up an interview with Mashable in May that they may make Facebook events accessible to people who are not on the network. So that'd be a whole new game to play. As to really keeping yourself private, there would really be no way to do that right now.
So for now, the solution is to unfriend everyone and get off of Facebook, and then later, never go on the internet. Got it. All right. Yep. Well, whatever it takes to avoid the claws of Facebook. Kerry Flynn is at ibtimes.com and on Twitter at Kerry M. Flynn with 2 N's at the end. Kerry, thanks for coming on Tech News today.
Thanks. Bye, Mike.
All right. As we've reported in the past, Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos has his own personal space program. His company is called Blue Origin, and they launched their first spacecraft called New Shepard in April. This morning, Bezos announced a new home for Blue Origin. Christian Davenport is a reporter for The Washington Post and joins us now. Welcome to the show, Christian.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Now, what did Bezos announce this morning?
Well, he announced that his company, Blue Origin, is going to be taking over one of the launch complexes there on Cape Canaveral, Launch Complex 36, where they're going to be launching rockets by the end of this decade. And he also said that in addition to launching rockets there, they'll build them. He will create a manufacturing site so he can build and launch his rockets right there on the Space Coast.
Now, isn't this a historic launch pad? What else has happened on Complex 36?
Well, it was used throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, but has been dormant since 2005. It's been home to 145 launches. You know, again, some of the first launches out into visiting other planets in the solar system took place there. But, you know, like much of the Cape and the Space Coast, it's been dormant, particularly in the last several years when the Space Shuttle was retired in 2011. But now what you're seeing on Cape Canaveral and the Kennedy Space Center is companies like Blue Origin coming back, basing their operations there. You've got SpaceX, which is Elon Musk's space company, which is over on Launch Complex 39A. Boeing, which like SpaceX has a contract from NASA to fly astronauts eventually, I think by 2017, to the International Space Station. They're expanding their presence there on the Space Coast. So you're seeing the Cape sort of starting to come back thanks to these commercial space entities.
Yeah, so it's become this sort of it's almost like a harbor where people rent like little bits and pieces there, and SpaceX is nearby. Now, what does Bezos actually plan to do with its space program? What is Blue Origin for? What's the business here that Jeff Bezos is into?
Well, it's, you know, he's got his New Shepard vehicle, which you had talked about, and that test flight went to about pretty much the edge of, you know, the beginning of space, almost 60 miles. He also announced today that they're working on a new orbital launch vehicle, which would be powered, you know, sometimes by a new engine. And that vehicle, it seems, could be used for a lot of different types of missions. I mean, I think Jeff Bezos' main goal is human space flight and, exploring the cosmos in a way I think that is somewhat similar to what Elon Musk is talking. But this, space vehicle could also be used potentially to fly commercial satellites, even government payloads. Could compete potentially for the commercial crew missions for NASA, flying astronauts and/or cargo to the International Space Station. So if he can get that rocket up and running from the Cape, it could put him into position to do a lot of different things.
As long as he doesn't use it to try to deliver packages. Now, is this why some people hate tech billionaires, because they own newspapers and rockets? What do you think about that?
Well, some of the reporters who like, writing about space and wouldn't mind traveling to space, that could be maybe potentially a good deal from us. Today, he said at the end of his speech, he was talking about how maybe he could, one day in the future actually do the press conference in space. So that'd be pretty cool. Absolutely. I wouldn't mind going as well. It is very cool. And I personally think that the privatization of a lot of this space is a great thing, because it's like, NASA is sort of hamstrung by the politics and that sort of comes and goes. And as we've seen after the retirement of the space shuttle, we've been relying on Russia to deliver American astronauts into space. So it's like, if we're going to have somebody other than NASA do it, they might as well be, people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. Why not? As long as they can do it safely and efficiently, and probably they can do it more cost efficiently than the government can. Christian Davenport is at WashingtonPost.com and on Twitter at _Chris Davenport. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks for having me. All right. More news coming right up, but first let's talk about ZipRecruiter, the way to hire people. The most important thing you'll ever do as a professional, if you do hire people, if you have a small business, if you run a small department, if you're starting a startup, you have to hire the best people. That's the difference between success and failure in today's world. And, really good people in this job market are hard to find. So you don't want to just go to 1 or 2 or a dozen or 3 dozen job boards. You want to go to 100+ job boards, which you can do with ZipRecruiter with a single click. It's so powerful to get your job out there. You can get onto the social networks. You can get on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. You can automate some of that social interaction. You can be notified when the most qualified candidates come in, and you can optimize these job searches for mobile. You can use custom branding. There's so many powerful tools that ZipRecruiter gives you to not only make that hire as smooth and seamless as possible and to get the best person, but also you can collaborate with your colleagues to get that hire done, and that doesn't cost you any extra. You can even create custom email responses when candidates apply. And, ZipRecruiter's done the hard part. They've done all the hard parts about hiring people. They will deliver on a silver platter the most qualified candidates. So today you can try ZipRecruiter for free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. And we thank ZipRecruiter for their support of Tech News Today. Facebook will work with the German government to crack down on hate speech and racism on the social network and beyond, according to the Wall Street Journal. There's been a surge in such language in Germany since the refugee crisis started making headlines. Facebook said they'll work with Germany's Ministry of Justice, with other social networks, and also with ISPs to track down and censor hateful content faster. Germany's expected to receive about 800,000 refugees this year, mostly from war-torn countries in the Middle East and Afghanistan. Joe Panettieri, this is a tough one, because right now Facebook has, as part of its user agreement, the fact that they will crack down on threats, they'll crack down on attacks against people's race, but they don't crack down on people if you have hate speech against somebody because of their actions, such as fleeing a war-torn area. That's not something they currently censor. So this is a change in their policy that they're doing. I don't know if it's just for Germany or if it's going to be global. They're kind of vague on the details, but this is a case in which a national government is trying to work with Facebook, and Facebook is doing something else that's interesting. They're taking a leadership role, saying, yes, we represent all the web, all the internet, and we're going to try to work together with multiple players to censor this kind of hate speech. What do you make of this news, Joe?
Well, the thing I make of it is the balancing act that Facebook's going to have here. There'll be the executives and the people involved in Facebook, but then there'll be the machine learning and the algorithms that Facebook is going to have to either A, develop, or B, tweak to address this? And are those algorithms, to your point, going to be universal, global, or is it really just in the Germany area that they're going to be cracking down? So I'm very curious to see the balancing act here between the people side of it and the machine learning side of it, and then the regional, the geographic side of it.
Yeah, and there are serious laws against certain types of speech in Germany. I understand that you can get 3 years in jail or in prison for hate speech, but if it's Holocaust denial, you can get 5 years. So they take it very, very seriously, and they don't have anything like a First Amendment that protects that kind of speech. Well, Russia's Federal Anti-Monopoly Service said yesterday that Google abuses its dominant position in mobile operating systems by requiring phone makers to pre-install Google apps on Android phones. Google said it strongly disagrees with the accusation. Google is facing a fine of up to 15% of its 2014 revenue within Russia. The case is based on a complaint by Yandex, which is the dominant search engine in Russia and which has 60% market share in that country. Joe, let me frame this. So
I know where you're going.
Yeah,
I know where you're going. Go
Yandex
ahead.
is worried about Google in the search engine space, so they're going to the government and complaining about them in the Android space because they don't have even a majority market share in the search engine space.
Yeah, there's that piece of it, and to build on your thesis there, Mike, it's very interesting to see sort of the return of the old PC debate where Microsoft controlled the desktop and wound up in court every time they tried to monopolize the images and the icons on that system. So history is repeating itself. And the interesting thing is history sorted itself really out in the PC market. I wonder if it will be history or governments that sort out the situation here in the mobile market.
Yeah, the big difference here is that in this case, Google, of course, is facing antitrust action worldwide, mostly around Google search. But also occasionally around Android. But it always depends on whatever the concern is of either the region in the case of Europe or the country in the case of Russia and others. In Europe, they're super concerned about privacy, and they're super concerned about the favoring of one company of Google's own brand over competitors within the search results. And of course, that's a difficult thing to tease out because those algorithms are secret. In Russia, they're just concerned about foreign influence in general, I think. And Yandex is one of the rare cases where a national search engine is more popular in that country than Google. In Europe, it's like 92% of users use the Google search engine. In Russia, Yandex is doing very well, and they want to hang on to that lead. And this is, I guess, seen as one way to do that. Well, in news you can lose, here's a pro tip for you drone videographers. Make sure you attach the camera really well. A GoPro fell off a drone over Burning Man this week and landed right in the center of the festival. On second thought, maybe bombing Burning Man with a GoPro is the right way to get great footage. Here comes the video. All right, so now we see drone video over the Burning Man, which is in the Black Rock Desert in California. And there's a big mob of people and a kind of a dance floor type of thing right in the middle, and the GoPro's right over it. And something happens here, Joe. Watch this. See? Something happens. So the drone is still in the air, I think. The GoPro falls to the earth and boom, lands, rolls. And now Burning Man
keeps
people
rolling.
It's still filming. Looks great. Now a Burning Man guy picks it up and carries it into the dance floor, and suddenly it's party time. I mean, how do you plan that? I mean, if that was planned, that was a good hit. Yep. And now the GoPro is like part of the thing there. Well, welcome to California, Mr. GoPro. All right, well there it is. Wonderful. Our word of the day is PlayStation VR. That's the new official name for the Sony virtual reality project, formerly known as Morpheus. The branding was announced at the Tokyo Game Show. Joe Panettieri, I guess hanging on to the Morpheus branding was too much to ask.
Yeah, Morpheus, awesome. Really hope that they had stuck around with that and asked me which pill to swallow, and guess we're not going to be able to do that.
Well, our TNT fan of the day is Pedro Fonseca in Portugal, who posted this picture on Instagram. He said, "This is how we watch TNT at Coxie Media, which is Pedro's social media company in Portugal. Check it out. There we are." Very, very cool. Show us how you watch or listen to TNT. Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup and post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook. And use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT so we can find it. Joe, what's going on at After Nines, man? You have big news for us today.
Yeah, at long last, we actually have some big news to share. So After Nines, our company today launched ChannelE2E.com, and E2E stands for Entrepreneur to Exit. So if you are a VAR, a value-added reseller, a managed service provider, an IT consultant, and you're trying to figure out how to build and manage your business from the day you start, the day you're that entrepreneur, to the day you end, the day you exit, Channel E2E is for you. We just launched it today.
Very, very cool, and congratulations for that. I know that's a lot of work. I thought you originally launched this to gain some semblance of work-life balance, but it looks like you're tilting again in the other direction.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting about this is the last business we launched, we had multiple sites where I was blogging multiple times a day on multiple sites. This one, yeah, my content's up there, but also it's crowdsourced. We have all these database engines. So if people want to put in a partner program, by all means, jump in and do it. If people want to put in a major event in the industry, by all means, do it. So the crowdsourcing, we think, is really going to set us apart this time around.
All right. Well, Joe, thank you so much for co-anchoring, and we will see you next week. Take care.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. Let us know what's on your mind. Send email to tnt@twit.tv or call 260-TNT-SHOW. That's 260-868-7469. You can subscribe to Tech News Today on Stitcher, or you can choose another way to subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. If you're ever anywhere near San Francisco, California, for example, if you go to Burning Man, come on over and watch us as part of our studio audience. Send email to tickets@twit.tv. You can subscribe to our subreddit at technewstoday.reddit.com, and you can follow me at elgan.com. Don't miss our other news show, Tech News Tonight, at 4 p.m. Pacific every single weeknight. That is the Tech News Today, ladies and gentlemen. This show is produced by Jason Cleanthes and edited by Anthony Nielsen. My name is Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.